Hello everybody, it's Wixel here, and today I am back with another video. Back with the best scrap farming method in Rust today. Let's get right into this video. Scrap is the main currency in Rust, and you can use it to buy guns, helicopters, boats, explosives, and much more from NPCs or other players. You can also use scrap to research items on the tech tree and then craft them. Basically, if you have scrap, you can do whatever you want. That's why I'm sharing some of the best tips and tricks to get your scrap safely and effectively, including scrap farms that produce over 1,000 scrap an hour. Even pro players might learn something new today. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. With that said, let's dive into the most basic method, component farming. There are many ways to get components in Rust. You can farm roads, oceans, monuments, underground tunnels, underground water labs, oil rigs, cargo ships, and more. Let's start with the simplest farming method, farming the roads. The easiest and most obvious way is by farming roads. Along these roads you will find junk piles and road signs. It's as simple as it sounds. Farm all the barrels and road signs, loot all the crates, and recycle everything. In addition to the scrap, you will be left with high quality metal, which luckily you can also exchange for scrap in vending machines. This method may sound straightforward, but in reality it's not. First, loot will only spawn on parts of the road where you and other players are likely to run into each other. Secondly, junk piles only respawn after 30 minutes, making farming even harder. Finally, you are extremely easy to kill while farming these roads. I recommend this method while you were just getting started out on a new server. To get some scrap and get out, it's high risk, high reward. The next level up from the roads is monuments. Here's the first tip you need to know. There are monuments where you don't need any cards. All you need is clothes and a wooden armor to protect yourself from radiation, and a bit of skill and ability to do some parkour. Let's start with the sphere.
You stupid.
There are 3 military crates spawning on the top and some regular crates below. To get to the top, you will need to activate those parkour skills. That's the trade-off for not needing any cards. Are you able to make the jump, or will you fall trying? Next, you can go to the sewer branch. Here you will find a few crates. Like the sphere, you will need those parkour skills, but unlike the sphere, the sewer branch has a recycler, so you can recycle all of those components into scrap at once. Finally, there's a water treatment plant. Here, you can find a lot of loot, both easy and tricky to get to. There are a lot of barrels, a recycler, an oil refinery, and to top that all off, there's almost no radiation here, making this monument perfect. It has everything you might need. Once you have a good weapon, it's best to head down into the tunnels. By looting just one station, you will get a huge amount of a wide variety of components and other items that you can recycle for even more scrap. However, it's quite dangerous, not only due to the heavily contested area, but also the NPCs lurking down there. It's best to make sure you have some armor, meds, and a decent weapon before heading down. Be careful when exiting these monuments. If people know when you're down there, you will likely get camped on your way out, making all your hard work for nothing. So make sure you go down at night with a light and try to stay quiet, or you might lose all of your loot. Don't forget, you could also just become the camper. No. We've been on land and underground. Now it's time to get our feet wet in the ocean. First, let's go over your options. Luckily, you have a few to choose from. Firstly, the boat. You can either find them on the beach or buy them. Once you get the boat, you need to go looking for floating junk piles to farm the scrap. If you're feeling a bit more adventurous, you can buy a diving kit and go swimming with the fishes. More in a physical sense than in the other term. Once you're underwater, you will need to find shipwrecks. Each of these options has its own advantages and disadvantages. Finding a boat is a hard task, and buying one you'll need to spend 125 scrap. Not only that, but you will also need the fuel too, which is no little amount of pocket change. It's also slower than a big boat, and if you're getting chased down by another player, you might not survive. But even so, farming scrap in the ocean is by far the safest thing to do, as there's very little competition, and there is a ton of loot to be had. To protect yourself even more, it's better to buy a diving kit from the fishing village. It will enable you to be able to breathe underwater, swim faster, and see clearly. It's a key piece of equipment to have if you're going into the ocean to farm components. Just remember, with this gear, you can loot shipwrecks in peace, or not. That's where another problem might come in. Sharks. To defend against them, you will need a spear gun and spears, which is going to cost you 155 scrap to research on a tech tree. But again, it's worth it because you can find a lot more components and other items underwater that would definitely compensate you for your hard work. The last and most profitable method is looting underwater labs. Here you'll find similar loot as in the tunnels, but underwater instead, with much more loot. However, get ready for stronger NPCs, sharks that swim around the labs, and of course other players that will be waiting for you. If you can avoid all of this, you can get over 300 scrap in just 30 minutes. Of course, don't forget about the oil rigs and cargo ships where you can get even more scrap, but that's much harder and a lot more dangerous when you're doing it by yourself. Now I will show you 3 farms that can give you a huge amount of scrap every hour, but they do take a little bit of work. But in the end, they are much more efficient and much safer than the alternative methods as mentioned before. Now, I would like to start off by saying I don't mean to be crude. Horse poo farm. Yes, you heard me right. The first and, in my opinion, the best farm is a horse poo farm. How does it work? Find or buy a horse at the ranch for 75 scrap. Stick it in your base and place a trough next to it up against the wall and put some food in it. You will have to wait a bit and grab the horse's poo. But once you do that, you'll place the poo in the compost and turn it into fertilizer. And then once you've got fertilizer, you can then go trade it for scrap at the bandit camp. Use this scrap to buy more horses and use some of the scrap to buy pickles to feed your horses. Rinse and repeat. It's as easy as that. Now let's take a closer look at this method. The most important thing here to note is the sales gap. This is a restriction on buying and selling items through NPCs or vending machines. Most of the time on modded servers, it's disabled, but on classic or vanilla servers, it will definitely slow you down, especially if you're competing with somebody else at trading. Currently, you can sell 68 fertilizer at a time and get 102 scrap. Then you'll have to wait for the sales to recover. After 1 minute, you can sell about 18 more fertilizer, and after 5 minutes, the sales is fully restored. This means 270 scrap in 10 minutes. That's 40,000 scrap in a day. You also need to know that horses can stack with each other, so you can farm horse poop with a small base. To summarize, 1 horse on the ranch is worth 75 scrap. 1 horse makes 10 units of poo per hour. 1 poo equates to 10 fertilizers. This means you can recoup the costs of a horse in less than an hour. After that, all you do is keep buying horses and bam, you have one of the best and most efficient scrap farming methods in Rust. Next, we have a cloth farm. You have a bunch of options here. You can build a huge farm with lots of electricity, searching for good genes, and selling the cloth you farmed for scrap. But again, because of the sales gap, you won't be able to sell everything at once. At least you will always have clothes and bandages, I guess. Don't want to make a big farm? No problem. You can make a small and compact farm that runs on a single battery and a solar panel and takes water from the small water catchers. You will need 2 lines of resource to build this farm, and you will be turning over almost a full box of cloth per day. If you really want to turn over the big bucks, you can always combine it with a horse farm. Now for the last method, fishing. You can find a lot of videos on YouTube with different shark farms, automatic farms, fishing bases, and things like that. But to be honest, it's a pain and you will have to sit with a rod for hours fishing away. Maybe these base farms can help catch a fish a lot faster, but I don't see the point. With these other options shown before, it's hard to see this method is valid and engaging. But each to their own. But I won't deny it's a very good way of getting scrap. If you look at how much scrap you can get by selling fish you catch at the fishing village, it's quite impressive. By the way, if you want to fish in the safe zone, make sure you go to the back of the pier at the fishing village, not on the sides, because there is not enough depth on the sides, which reduces the chance of catching more expensive fish. And there we have it everybody, the ultimate guide to farming scrap in Rust. I hope you all enjoyed this video and I'm so excited to be back and making more. If you have any suggestions or questions, please leave them in the comment and I'll do my best to answer. But until then, Wixel out.